Ann Molloy was born and raised in Gloucester. After several years of traveling around the country and world, she settled back here and has been helping run her family business, Neptune's Harvest. For almost 30 years, Ann has overseen the marketing and sales for Neptune's Harvest division of Ocean Crest Seafoods, which came about to fully utilize 100% of the fish by turning the gurry, everything that's left after you eat the fillet, into organic fertilizer. She has a wide knowledge of organic fertilizer and the fishing industry. She also loves to paint, write, and see live music. Ann is on the board of Gloucester Sea and Land Together. Bart DiFiore from Gloucester Land and Sea Together is currently finishing a PhD in marine ecology at the University of California, Santa Barbara. Before deciding to pursue a career in the marine sciences, Bart managed diverse vegetable and fruit farms in Massachusetts and Hawaii for 6 years. He is a licensed captain with the USCG and has worked on and around the waterfront in Gloucester since he was 14. He lives in Gloucester. It's Nature Wins podcast, a climate adaptation journey. I'm your host, Maureen Aylward. This is Cape Ann's climate story, a storied place. Gloucester, Rockport, Essex, and Manchester by the Sea. Coastal communities of people who know their way around a storm, but were vulnerable to climate threats and working on coastal resilience. Welcome to Nature Wins podcast. I'm Maureen Aylward, your host, and I'm in the Streamography studios here with Ann Molloy from Neptune's Harvest. Ann, thank you so much for joining me here.
Thank you, Maureen.
It's always so great to see you and learn more about the amazing product that is Neptune's Harvest. And we're right in the middle of spring popping all around us. It's April 10th today. And I wanted to have you on, one, to say that your product is amazing, that we're going to talk about the planting season and soil nourishment, but also to say that you are also a corporate sponsor for Town Green. So thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And you're sponsoring this segment. And how did it come to be Neptune's Harvest?
So our family has owned and operated Ocean Crest Seafoods in Gloucester since 1965. So we're a seafood company. My grandfather owned it before that, so it's actually been in my family 100 years approximately. So we're right next to Cape Pond Ice down the fort, and we're a seafood company. And in the 80s, anybody that's lived here for a long time will remember the dehyde, and they took all the fish gurry, the fish remains. So after you fillet a fish, 60 to 70% is left over. And the dehyde took it and made pet food, but they went out of business. And once that happened, we were forced to pay fishermen to take it back out to sea and dump it. So it was expensive, it was wasteful. This was back in the 80s, and it would actually create a dead zone out there because as it decomposed, it was sucking the oxygen out of the water, so it was very bad for the environment. So my dad got together with the University of Massachusetts Marine Station, and they helped us develop a process to turn it into fertilizer. So he said, maybe if we can use 100% of the fish and not throw 60 to 70% away, we could keep everybody employed. So he had 5 kids working there, plus cousins, nieces, nephews. So it was a lot of family. Still is a huge family business, and the seafood operation is still operating. But now we can utilize everything by turning the rest into organic fertilizer.
It's such a great Gloucester success story. I mean, you're all over the country.
Yes.
Are you around the world? I mean,
yeah.
Do you have some exports?
Yes, we do. We have a truckload of 55-gallon drums in the warehouse getting ready to go to Vietnam. We've shipped to Greece, so South America, Asia, Europe. Not that much, but we do. But mostly it's, farmers and home gardeners throughout the U.S. and even into Canada.
That's fantastic. Before we get into sort of soil nourishment and what Neptune's Harvest can do for your soil, why don't you tell me a little story about, or your favorite story, because you're such a great storyteller, and I'm wondering about, what's the story that you want to share?
Well, I went to the garden center when I first moved out and, got married, had a son, and wanted to grow my own vegetables. And I'm looking around all the stores. It was like Miracle Grow. It was like all chemical fertilizer. I'm like, why am I going to take the time to grow my own food and then put chemicals on it? I didn't want that for me or my young son, of course. So it was just great that all of a sudden I ended up in this organic fertilizer world. My dad wanted me to be a bookkeeper, and I was an art major in college. I'm like, there's no way I could be a bookkeeper. And then he decided to go into organic fertilizer. I'm like, okay, this I could absolutely get behind. And then we just sold to farms for years. And I said, me and my cousin were sitting around one night talking about it, and we're like, we should bottle it, and then everybody could use it, not just the farmers. And so I talked my dad into it and basically created a job for myself in the process. And just started with my son, like still in diapers, driving around to different garden centers all day. Every day we'd pick a different town or area, and we'd just go garden center to garden center with one little bottle of fish fertilizer and try to get us in, into these different stores. And that's how it all started.
Well, I'm a fan. I use it in my garden, and it works amazing. It's just such a wonderful nutrient. It just nourishes the plant and nourishes the soil. But, what do you say to people who haven't used it?
Try it. I mean, we send samples because it works so well. Once people try it, they're a customer for life. I mean, people are blown away. We get testimonials every day. I just read one before I came over here from a woman that had a dying fruit trees, and she said, we saved them, and now they look so good, they almost look artificial, and they're full of fruit, and it tastes so good. I mean, it really raises the nutritional value, the relative feed value, total digestible nutrients, and the bricks, which is your sugars. So it actually makes very nutrient dense food that tastes really good too.
So if you have a fruit tree, actually what was she doing? What was the process that she was? Could you explain, what the best way to feed a fruit tree?
So if you haven't planted it yet, you should mix some dry kelp meal, the ground up seaweed, and the crab and lobster shell in the hole before you plant anything. Mix it in nice and deep. The roots will reach for the shell chunks in the crab and lobster as a food source, so it'll drive your roots really deep. The deeper the roots, the stronger the plant, and the higher the yield it can handle. And then you feed with the liquid fish or liquid fish and seaweed. It's 1 ounce per gallon of water, so it goes a real long way. And then you just fill the hole with that liquid and then put the root ball in real quick before it has a chance for that liquid to absorb into the soil, and all that nutrition goes right into the roots and prevents transplant shock and gets it off to a really good start. But if you have an existing tree that's already there, you just soak the soil with the liquid, again 1 ounce per gallon of water. Probably the fish and seaweed is our best all-purpose, and then you can actually foliar spray all your plants because it's systemic, which means it'll go in through the leaf, down the stem, and into the root system, so you get more bang for your buck.
If you spray it on
the leaves, but you have to do it early in the morning when the pores on the leaves are open to accept the morning dew, because once the heat of the sun comes on them and the heat of the day, the pores on the leaves will close to retain moisture in the plant. So you never want to feed any liquid during the heat of the day, but in the morning it's perfect. It'll go right down into the root system through the plant, and that's where you see your best, quickest results.
So picture, a vegetable garden. People are looking out in their backyards and seeing their beds, and they're about to clean things up or have, they're getting it ready. Maybe they're putting some compost on there. Maybe they're doing they have seedlings themselves, or we're going to go to the nursery to pick some up. How do you utilize Neptune's harvest in this early time when, what's the best way to do it? Wait till the plants are in there? Can you, put some in the compost, or when you're turning over your gardens?
Okay, so it's a great compost enhancer. So if you spray your compost pile with the fish fertilizer, you can get usable compost in half the time. It really feeds the biology in there and multiplies the microorganisms, and it really creates a lot better compost and faster. You could start soaking the seeds. If you're starting from seed, soak the seeds for a few hours till they begin to swell, and then plant them. I always say use the indoor lower application rates on the label for little seedlings when they're inside. Then once you plant them outside, go full strength. So it's half strength, which is the indoor application rate. So 1 ounce is our normal application rate, which is 2 tablespoons. So half a tablespoon per gallon of water inside. Then when they go outside, full strength once a week, feed the soil and the plants. And that's really all there is to it. It's not that difficult. It's just remembering to do it. And I try to do mine every Saturday or Sunday morning. Yeah. And the results are so worth it.
Yeah, it's amazing. Tell us a success story. Like, I mean, of course, there's the classic, the Topsfield Fair.
Oh, so, okay.
What about another success story?
So, just to touch on the pumpkin for a second, because this is a total bragging right.
Yeah, of course you do.
The biggest pumpkin ever grown in the world used our fertilizer last year. It was grown in Minnesota. It weighed 2,749 pounds.
Wow.
So that's a world record right there. So I had to tell you that one.
Yes.
But all the giant sunflowers, the biggest tomatoes, the biggest watermelons. We have the world record butternut squash. Like, we are known amongst giant vegetable growers extremely well because it works so well, and we have a cult-like following. Yeah. People love it for that reason. But just like people that say, wow, this lemon tree never bloomed, or this, whatever flowering plant never bloomed until I used your stuff. Now it's full of blooms, and the color, it's amazing, the color that, comes out on the flowers when you use it, and so many more blooms, and the flavor and the smell on flowers, the flavor on fruit and vegetables. That's what people say the most. It's just, it rescued this plant that was dying, or this tree that never bloomed, or the taste is amazing. I've never had blueberries or strawberries taste as good as, and that's another bonus. When you build the sugar in the plant, insects can't digest sugar. So it's a great way of, insects will go to the weaker dying plants. It's nature's way of survival of the fittest. Get rid of the weaker dying ones. The stronger ones are going to thrive more, and the insects will leave them alone more. So it's not 100% foolproof, but it 100% helps.
I love using it. I just think that it's magic. It's just magic. I mean, everything that you're talking about, it's just this beautiful, natural thing that you can use to enhance the beauty in your yard. And beautiful, it's organic. So you have these, beautiful food in your backyard. I mean, I don't have the greatest green thumb in the world, so it has helped.
This helps.
It does. People are like, oh my God, this part of your garden is amazing. I was like, oh, it's Neptune's harvest. Come into the shed and see the magic. So you must get this a lot, like this magic, but it's nature's way of working.
It is. Right. So the whole world was under ocean water at one point. They found fish fossils on the top of Mount Everest. So it kind of makes sense why nutrients from the ocean, and the colder, darker the water, the more nutrient dense it is. So it's full of all the minerals and nutrients that plants and soil need in nature's perfect balance. So, you don't need to do it in a lab. Nature's done it for you. If you use the fish and the seaweed and the crab and the lobster, it's got everything in it that the plants and soil need.
Well, this is our world here in Gloucester, on Cape Ann. This is, we throw we have lobsters, and we've got the shells, but you have products that people can buy.
Oh, yeah.
That have all that.
Yep. We're up to 10 liquids now and 2 dry. So we have quite a line for all different things. We have a tomato and veg and a rose and flowering, lawn starter, turf formula. Mm-hmm. We started selling Humate, which is like taking the very best of a compost pile, make it into a liquid concentrate. We've sold it for years to organic farmers, and now the home gardeners are starting to catch on to it. So we decided to bottle it for retail sales also. Yeah.
I'm wondering if you might, there's just a couple of trends. Like, what are the trends that you're seeing right now that you think are, positive trends that can help people transform gardens, and some that are not so helpful?
So I think more and more people are aware of organics and to go organic and not put, chemical fertilizer on what you're going to eat or even your lawn. So a lot of farms in America have gone conventional, which is high chemical NPK fertilizers, and the soil is dead. It kills all the biological life. It turns to cement. You wonder why there's so many floods now. The soil can't drain, and you also need a lot more water to penetrate the soil. So you're using more water. You know, you have cracked, dry soil that's full of like dead, completely dead. No biological life. No earthworms. The roots can hardly move in it. It's so dense. So the fish fertilizer and some of the other products we sell, it increases your organic matter. So your soil is pliable, it's loose, the roots have room to move, it retains moisture better, and it drains better, and it will actually draw 60 pounds of nitrogen from the atmosphere if you have good organic matter, and it sequesters carbon. So, you know, chemicals are kind of, they used to say, oh, well, organic's too expensive. That's not the case anymore. Chemical fertilizer has gone through the roof. We have conventional farmers calling us all the time because our fish is way more affordable than their high NPK, and then once they use it for a few years, they're blown away.
Yeah,
they can't believe it.
Yeah. So the carbon sequestration in the soil, of course, is like also one of the big hopeful types of, I mean, it's nature's technology, but you know, increasing that, and healthy soil does that.
Absolutely.
And your backyard or your farm or you know, your fruit trees, whatever that you're doing in your yard, that can help.
Absolutely. If everybody used Neptune's harvest, we could save the world, Maureen.
And it's almost literally true.
Yeah, just keep that fish coming.
I know. What about that fish? You know, how are the stocks doing? I mean, you've been involved in the fishing industry, your family, for, like you said, over 100 years. And what have you seen over time?
So the stocks have replenished tenfold. There's underfishing happening now, not overfishing. The best available science is not very good science that they're basing these quotas and laws on. There's so much baby haddock and cod and pollock now. It's actually bringing in so many more seals. If you notice, like when I was a kid growing up, we never saw seals. Mm-hmm. Now there are so many seals because there's so much baby fish for them to eat, and that's bringing in the sharks. Mm-hmm. So now we have to worry about sharks around because there's so many seals around. But there's so much. I talk to the fishermen all the time. There's so much fish out there, and it's a shame because they'll catch over their quota, but when you drag a fish from the bottom of the ocean up to the top, it gets the bends like a diver coming up too fast. Mm-hmm. So they're throwing over dead fish if they've caught over their quota. Mm-hmm. So that's not, you know, conservation. That's just wasteful, and it's frustrating for me because and all the fishermen from, you know, coast to coast are dealing with the same thing. The regulations don't make sense. Mm-hmm. And, you know, don't get me started on the windmills because that's a whole nother
the turbines
horrible idea to put in our oceans when we have the richest seafood in the world here. And Gloucester fed the world during World War II. I mean, absolutely. It's so healthy for us. Like our fertilizer is so healthy because the fish we use is so nutrient dense. It's the best quality fish you can get pretty much the world because how cold and dark and nutrient rich our ocean water is.
So you don't have an issue with supply? Of fish.
We're doing good. We put in several years ago. We put in 4 30,000-gallon holding tanks. So those big green tanks you see down the fort, those are full of liquid fish fertilizer. So ever since we put those in, we've been able to stockpile during the slow time of the year. Mm-hmm. You know, we grind every day year round, except maybe some days off on Sunday, but even then sometimes we grind. So it takes 10 pounds of gurry to make 1 gallon of fish. So if we grind 5,000 pounds of gurry in a day, we've only ended up with 500 gallons of fish fertilizer. And we have a 5,000-gallon tanker truck that goes all over the country. He just came back from Nebraska, and then he went to Indiana. Now he's going back to Indiana. But, you know, farmers take it and they in the tanker truck, and we pump it into their tanks when we get there.
Wow.
So, you know, that's for every tanker truck we sell, that's 50,000 pounds of gurry that we had to grind. So, but luckily we get, you know, our gurry from New Bedford and Boston and other areas around here.
You're sourcing from all around.
Yeah, Gloucester doesn't have enough that would never support us, what we cut in Gloucester nowadays. Mm-hmm. So.
So Neptune's harvest is, trying to save the world with building healthy soil. And, you've done this for a long time, and you've, seen some changes, especially around climate, where you are down on the fort. Have you experienced flooding at all in your location, and how does that impact your business?
So absolutely, it used to be once in a very blue moon that you would see the whole wharf underwater, but now it's very common. It happens quite often. Luckily, it's just a cement floor. Our building is on the water, on pilings, so we are literally on the water. And the way the water rises up and it comes in, it's all cement floors, and then it drains back out. So our offices are high enough where it doesn't affect any machinery. Everything that we've built has been built up. So when it floods, we're okay for now. We may have to build up more eventually. Yeah. But we have like empty 55-gallon drums in the yard ready to fill with fertilizer floating down the road, fish totes floating down the road. I mean, it is definitely, sea levels are rising. I can see it with my own eyes.
What are you doing planning-wise? I mean, what's the conversation like?
So we built the wharf out. We had to put new pilings up, and we just did everything a little bit higher. All the cement went higher before we started with wood. All the pumps that we use to make our fertilizer up on cement, posts, so everything is up off the ground. We're just trying to raise everything. Every time we have to do something new, we build it up taller and higher. And I did learn recently that the low tide line on Cape Ann was about a half a mile farther out 2,000 years ago. So sea level's been rising for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't see why it's going to stop. So you have to plan for it.
Yeah, definitely have to plan for it. Well, and you're so involved as a community leader in so many different groups. We're going to talk about Gloucester Sea and Land together in a moment. But until we do that, we're going to wait for Bart DiFiore to join us. And we're going to take a short break, and we're going to listen to just a short ad for Common Crow. We'll talk to you soon. Common Crow Natural Market, Cape Ann's one-stop shop for natural and organic food, scratch-made grab-and-go treats and meals, natural and organic wellness and beauty items, and fair trade gifts and housewares. Kind service and knowledgeable staff will help you make the best choices for you. Our passion feeds you. Welcome back to Nature Wins, and the second segment for this podcast. We're speaking with the folks from Gloucester SaLT, and I'm sitting here with Bart DiFiore and Ann Molloy. So thanks very much for being here today. We really excited about learning more about Gloucester SaLT. So I'm going to let you do the talking. Tell us what Gloucester SaLT is doing. What's your gig?
Yeah, so Gloucester SaLT is a new nonprofit. We are a very small community group. I think it's a collection of about 8 or 9 of us right now. And so we sort of got organized, I would say, about 2 years ago. Is that, Ann, right? General timeline was about 2.5 years ago. And we're a collection of community members, primarily from Gloucester and Cape Ann. And we are scientists, farmers, educators, fishermen. We have a few different fishermen on the team, including lobstermen and one person who's really been a dragger for most of his life. And then my role is sort of as a marine scientist. And the idea behind Gloucester SaLT is that we wanted to increase access and education around both sort of the broader holistic food system of Cape Ann. And I think there's a lot of work that goes on in Cape Ann that really focuses on the sort of traditional food system we think about, which is vegetables and other foods like that. But there's not as much education that goes on surrounding sort of how food is harvested from the sea. And so we are really trying to focus on both aspects of that system, both sort of the harvest from land and from the ocean. And right now, we're kind of just getting going in all of our different programming, but the form that it's taken so far is we've done a series of community classes. And so we've done a few of these series so far, and we're also trying to start to get engaged with some younger students in sort of the middle to high school age group.
So what do your community education programs focus on? Like, take me through one.
Yeah. So it started pretty organically. So they're hosted over at Cedar Rock Gardens because Tucker Smith is part of the SaLT team. And really, it just started inside of his greenhouse was the first round of them. And typically how we do it is the classes are once a week for 3 or 4 weeks. And they sort of step through different aspects. So during the fall season, we might do stuff that's more focused on extending the growing season and sort of ideal growing conditions, sort of how do you, both from a home gardener scale all the way up to sort of a small farm scale, sort of set up greenhouses, maintain temperature and environment for plants. And then we sort of combine that work on agricultural systems with some education around the marine environment. So sort of, some of the modules that I'll teach will be about changes in the Gulf of Maine and different fish species in the Gulf of Maine. And then some of the other instructors will really focus on sort of how fish are harvested and all of the different commercial techniques that are used to land fish. And so typically these classes are a combination of sort of more traditional classroom setting where we'll stand up there and talk at folks, and then there's a lot of sort of demonstration and cruising around the farm. What we'd love to do is get people more access to the water, although that's kind of hard to do so far. So that's kind of the direction that we're trying to go. And then generally these classes culminate in the last evening is sort of preparing the sort of the fruits of the classes. So in the last one we did the Feast of the Seven Fishes, which we did it right in the late fall season. So the last class we had a whole fish preparation class, and we really focus on fish preparation not just being about fish filleting, but sort of how do you prepare whole fish, how do you sort of work from the fish species that are sort of underutilized in many areas. And then we use many of these species Joe Sanfilippo prepared a whole Feast of the Seven Fishes, and so the last class was more of a cooking demonstration at Joe's cooking show.
That must have been fun.
And a lot of really good eating.
Yeah, I was going to say, for those who don't know, could you explain what the Feast of the Seven Fishes
are? Yeah, sure. So the Feast of the Seven Fishes, the origins of the Feast of the Seven Fishes are still a little murky to me, but generally what my understanding is it started in the Italian-American community sometime since it was the 60s or 70s, I think, was the first occurrence where it started to pop up. But generally it is a feast that happens on Christmas Eve, and there are 7 different fish dishes that are served, and fish being a broad term for everything from octopus, squid, shellfish, and lots of different fish species.
Wow! So getting a class in how to cook of the Feast of the Seven Fishes. I mean, was it full? That's phenomenal.
Yeah, we had lots of participants in that class. And right now we're actually looking to sort of take it elsewhere. So there's a group that I'm forgetting the name of. Do you remember the name of the group in Chelsea? I think it's Green Grows Chelsea. They have a new commercial kitchen space. So they actually, one of their funders or participants came to the class and wants us to try to put a similar style class on up in the Chelsea commercial kitchen that they have.
So one of the things about SaLT is we're bringing the sea and land together. We are trying to be self-sufficient for food security in Gloucester and Cape Ann. So it was evident during COVID when shelves started to become empty that we're not as food secure as you might think. So if we could teach people how to fish, how to fillet a fish, how to catch squid, how to clean a squid, how to cook a whole redfish that you could buy for $1 and feed a family of 4 if you know how to cook it right, cook it whole, or learn how to fillet your fish. You could save a ton of money buying whole fish and filleting it. If you know how to grow your own food and how to preserve your own food, how to forage for food, how to get shellfish off the rocks, mussels, babalugi, which is the periwinkles, things like that. You can feed yourself here in Cape Ann with all our resources, but people don't know how. And whether you have a lot of money or not, you can eat delicious seafood if you know how to source it, catch it even, or buy it locally, how to fillet it yourself. My daughter-in-law came to one class. She was filleting fish. She was cleaning squid. I mean, I loved it. I think that's really our main goal, is to be food self-sufficient and teach people how to do that.
Yeah, I love that. Well, people travel all over the world, and they take, food tourism where they go and they take classes like this, and other places. Yeah. But we have it right here through your organization and what you're doing here, it's so valuable. It's amazing. So, are you seeing an uptick? I mean, people know what it is. Are you?
I would say we're definitely seeing an uptick in interest in the classes. Right now, it's basically we're limited by our capacity to put them on, and Cedar Rock Garden's greenhouse space at the very moment. We're really focusing on the preparation side because we're not in a commercial kitchen, so we can't do the full cooking demonstration, technically speaking. But we're seeing a lot of interest in these classes, and I think it's amazing how little folks know about the species that we have right here, other than just cod and haddock, which is sort of the classic things that everybody's familiar with. But there's so many other things that are available and have their own seasons, and it's really just a great way to sort of diversify the way we're eating out of the local food system.
Well, if you're not able to go out there and fish yourself, what's a great place to go and get different kinds of fish? And we've lost a few fish markets.
Yeah, well, there's Fisherman's Wharf and there's Cape Ann Lobsterman, and then you could always call the seafood companies, and if you wanted a whole fish, and you could get a whole fish for a lot less money, and then you could, rod and rail fish off the rocks or the breakwater or, the docks. So and you could forage off the rocks. And we have one of our members is Great Marsh Oyster Company.
Yeah, I forgot about Brendan.
Yeah,
cool.
And Brendan Doyle, and he's a Gloucester kid, and he has his oyster farm in Rowley because he wasn't allowed to do it here in Gloucester. But he raises some of the best oysters. I'm not even an oyster fan, and I liked his oysters. So it's just amazing what we're rich here in our food supply. We just have to know how to acquire it.
So how can people, they're like, oh, I'm really interested in doing this. What's coming up that people want to know more about, how to get involved or sign up for a class?
Yeah, so right now we are still planning our spring class series. We haven't got the dates nailed down quite yet, but if you go to our website, which is gloucestersalt.org, you can keep updated on where we're at with that spring series. We're definitely be hosting one in the fall also. We're also trying right now to focus a little bit more. The community classes, I think, were hugely successful, but it was predominantly an older demographic, basically just not sort of school-aged kiddos. And so we're really trying to focus on how to reach out to youth, too, for a lot of this. And so right now we have, for instance, we're having a field trip from the Ipswich Middle School, I believe, scheduled for later in April. And they're going to be coming to Cedar Rock, and we're going to sort of host the same sort of style. We might even try to get them over to Neptune's Harvest. We haven't chatted about that yet. But really trying to think about both aspects of the food system. So how is food grown on a farm, and then how is it harvested out of the ocean? So one of the ways that people can help with that is donations through our website would definitely go towards supporting that youth programming. And then you can also sign up to reach out to us and be added to our mailing list for any upcoming classes that we have.
That's great. And you wanted to mention a fundraiser coming up.
Yeah, so this artist named Erica is, she's doing an installation at Intershell, which is down the fort. When you first go into the fort, you can't miss it now. He just painted it kind of a pink color.
Yeah, everybody's wondering what's going on.
Pompano Palace.
Yeah, what's happening? It's Miami, a little Miami,
little Miami, exactly.
A little Miami down the fort.
Yeah, but it's still pretty rustic on the inside, and Erica is doing an art installation called The Networks, and you're actually going to walk through a fish net, and there's sounds and smells and videos, and the opening is May 10th, 5:30, but it'll be going for, I believe, at least 20 days. And she was so kind to make all the donations go to Gloucester SaLT. So if you go, it's free, but if you wanted to donate, you will be able to scan a QR code, go right to our website and make a donation on our website. So I think that was really nice of her she's really embodied Gloucester. She's learned a lot about our culture and the fishing industry, and she didn't want to take the money, any donations. She didn't want to pocket it. She said, I want it to go to something really great, Gloucester, to help the fishermen and help, Gloucester. And she learned about salt, thought it was great, and so she's donating all the donations to us.
That's fantastic. I mean, it's such a great community organization, and it needs to be highlighted along with all the other wonderful groups that are doing similar work. But, the idea of land and sea together, of course, is this is fascinating thing, and also the food security, as you were saying, making sure that people know how to grow food and harvest it from the ocean. These are just basic ancient, and Neptune's harvest also like an ancient thing. I mean, it's always been. It feels like it has always been. So, it sounds like, just pulling this idea back to the forefront of, sharing the knowledge of so many generations on how to do this and bringing it back.
And what's the story? I'm going to butcher it, but what's the story from Sicily about how fishermen used to be farmers that Joe and you talk about a lot? Do you remember that story?
Yeah, a lot of the fishermen they'd farm in the winter or the summer, and then they'd fish in the winter. Fishermen are farmers of the sea. And I deal with farmers and fishermen all day, and they're the same exact breed. They dress the same, they look the same, their hands are rough the same. They can fix anything anywhere with what they have. They're amazing at every trade you would need: a plumber, an electrician, a mechanic. They can do it all, and my joke is they all cry poor mouth too.
They want a discount.
They all say they're never making any money, farmers and fishermen, but they do make money. So.
Yeah, there are ways. I mean, successful fishing businesses have been here for eons, right? And farmers too. I always think, I know Tucker and Cedar Rock, and what a great place to go and have a class in those greenhouses. But there have been farms. There are farms here on Cape Ann, and it's fresh food grown here.
There's an amazing network of local farms that exist in our area, especially if we sort of extend out the definition of Cape Ann towards the Raleigh area and those
Ipswich,
and there is a lot of land in production, and there's a lot of food that's grown here. It's actually amazing. I
could say over the years, I've been, selling fertilizer for 30 years. Lately, the last 5 or 10 years, there's so many young, hippie organic farmers showing up everywhere. And it just does my heart so good. I'm just so happy to see it. I love it.
Back to the land, back to the land, back to the sea. I think that's what is represented here in this particular organization, is that there's power and beauty and satisfaction in doing this kind of work. And you're bringing it also to the next generations and people who are interested in learning.
I love that about SaLT too, is because I've gone to a lot of meetings, and it's a bunch of us sitting around preaching to the converted, and nothing ever comes of it. And it's all people, my age or older. I'm almost 60, But now I see Bart and Tucker and Brandon and all these young people that really are interested in this, and I'm like, okay, I'm energized again, because these people aren't just talking about it; they're actually doing it, and they're young. So our future is bright with some of these young people we have here.
Yeah, I agree.
The other focus that we have, and it's mainly through collaborations with other groups like Joe Sanfilippo's group, Extreme Fishing Gloucester, is we're not there yet, but the idea is also to try to build some infrastructure to try to promote training for the fishing industry. And so, because like Ann said, their regulations have caused stocks to rebound in many ways, but the industry itself might not be able to have the capacity to harvest those stocks. And so trying to build that capacity out too is sort of part of the longer term vision of the organization. And how we get there is not clear to us exactly yet, but that's sort of one of the longer term aims too.
Yes, there's funding out there for this kind of thing. Workforce development.
There is certainly lots of grants. Right now we are an entirely volunteer 501c3, and I think all of us have other full-time jobs. So it is one of the challenges has been just trying to find the time, trying to apply for these grants and get some money coming in, and how to navigate all of that.
Yeah, definitely want to see this grow.
Yeah, ideally we'd get enough donations to hire a grant writer, because there are a lot of grants out there, but none of us are grant writers or have time. So if we get enough donations to hire a grant writer, then we could really springboard from there, and the sky's the limit. If things go ideally, we could even get a property that'll be ours, and we won't have to use the greenhouses, and we could get equipment that we need and keep it in one spot for the classes, and that would be and hey, maybe even a greenhouse that the community could all come and start their seeds and learn, and then go home and plant.
Yeah, it's a great it's a great community ecosystem, and then the ecosystem of the food and the relationships and the partnerships that you're building. It's I really wish you all the best. I want to see this grow. Well, that's all the time we have for Nature Wins today, but I really appreciate just taking us through Gloucester SaLT and some of the things that you've talked about. We'll have that resources on the Town Green website, as well as on the Spotify. There's notes. You can learn more about links to the organization and also to networks. We'll likely put up that as a resource because it's coming up soon. But thank you so much for being on Nature Wins today. And thank you for listening, and thanks for watching. I'm Maureen Aylward, your host, and we'll see you next time. Nature Wins is hosted by Maureen Aylward, produced by Town Green, directed by Streamography. Corey Rinn wrote our theme song, Can't Buy Back the Rain from the Sky. The show is recorded at Streamography Studios in Gloucester, and GL Designs does our graphic design. Nature Wins is sponsored by Common Crow Natural Market.